Okay, this question is on persistent nosebleeds that don't seem to have any medical reason. So I think it's great that you've had this checked out. It definitely makes it easier for me to respond to when I know that people have had the tests, the scans, etc. One thing that I will say is that if your gut is still telling you things are off and you're not getting some answers, is to get second opinions, ask different doctors as well. It's just something that I've come across where it's like, people feel like it's not quite right or it's just been dismissed, and their gut, their body is telling them keep looking, because sometimes our body does reach this crisis point where it needs the level of intervention that's at the conventional level, at the medical level. But yeah, that's just something I want to say. But obviously, you're in this group, and if you're like, right, okay, yeah, I've got to deal with my emotions. What is it that is going on here? Now, I would be interested, is your left nostril or your right nostril that keeps on bleeding? Have you thought about getting it cauterized as well? So as I'm speaking, more and more stuff is coming to me. Is the environment is really important. You know, when did these nosebleeds start? Whenever someone's got this condition, when did it start? What was going on in your life? What changes have you made? Because, for example, it's really common for people to get nosebleeds after they've been on the aeroplane or if they're going in and out of air conditioned offices. So have you changed a job? Have you changed a location where you're in heat and humidity and then you go into a dry air conditioned office? Because when our mucous membranes get dry, then our blood vessels get weaker. And once we've burst one and have a blood nose, that's going to take time to heal. But if we keep on bursting it, we get a weak spot. It's a little bit like if you scratch your skin and then you keep on scratching it, you're going to weaken that area and the tissue is going to change. So sometimes it needs a long period where it hasn't had where it can actually heal and recover. And so if anyone here has had eczema and you've noticed that your skin goes like snaky or crocodile-like, that's the change that starts to happen. And then you need a long period of time with no eczema, no scratching, for that skin to actually return to normal. And that can take months or years for some people, but it can change because our body is constantly responding to our environment. So that's something to take note of. And if you are in those dry environments, I don't know if they still make it. It was available in Australia and I assume here, but you could easily do something yourself. But like Fess had this little sesame oil thing and you would like squeeze a drop into your nose and you just massage it and it just helps moisturize those mucous membranes with a more oily material to keep that moist environment. You could shove cotton bud safely, please, people, with a little bit of oil on it, sesame oil on it, and spin it around your nose just to moisturize it. But something oily, coconut oil, something like that. Just something really neutral to moisturize and allow a nice healing environment for your little capillaries that keep on bursting and causing the blood noses. So, you know, it can be the same one that just keeps on bursting over and over again, which is why they usually do the cauterizing of it. But if it was environmental, right, and it's not even emotional, then you could get things cauterized, but then you would still change the environment in there to allow the healing to prevent new blood noses. All right, let me go off that track now. A lot of people, and I've said this in the last live or a previous live not long ago, a lot of people attribute emotional stress to feeling stressed in their mind, thinking the thing over and over again. But the reality is that our body can manifest stress in many undesirable ways. It can be physical for some people. It can be mental for other people, anxiety, depression, fears and phobias. It can be behavioral for others. And they might not get any physical symptoms in their body. So I think some people get a little bit miffed because they're like, well, you know, there's no emotional root that I can think of. But for me, I'm like, well, your body is clearly telling you something. So body, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, energetic. So it would also be getting more in tune to, okay, well, when this does happen, what was going on in my life the hours before, the day before? Is there something consistent? And this is where tracking it and writing it down can be really useful. You know, it makes me think of some tracking that I've done in the past. when I did elimination communication with my daughter, which is noticing when she pees and poos when she was a baby. What was she doing? What were the signs, the noises? What was her behavior just before she peed and pooed, so that I could pick up on those cues? Now, the thing is that what I realized was she'd pee or poo, and then I couldn't, like, I realized I was so not present that I couldn't recognize what she was just doing 2 seconds, 2 minutes beforehand. But when I made a habit of it, and within a couple of weeks, it's like, oh, you're bringing awareness, you're bringing consciousness to it, and then you recognize the patterns. Sorry, I use my animals and my personal stories as examples because everything's connected. There's a story that can help you understand something. My mares, my horses, my mares, there's 2 of them that I've bred, and my farrier said, don't be afraid to track it and notice the signs. And I just not been conscious of like their regular cycle. And then when I started tracking it for 2 months, it's like, oh, bang on 21 days and it happens. And, today actually they should be coming back into season if they're not in foal. So what we bring attention to, we then start to notice the patterns. And so I'm going to say, when you do have a blood nose, reflect, but don't beat yourself up because you can't remember what just happened a couple of hours beforehand. If you set the intention, you will start to notice. And, other things that can happen is when people's blood pressure peaks when they get stressed, it can trigger a blood nose. I remember having a friend at high school that whenever she got quite upset, she would have a blood nose. My daughter has had that sometimes as well. She gets them, you could say she gets them randomly, but I can see that it's when she gets quite upset, and it's worse in hot weather as well. So because not everything is emotional, a very small percent, I would say 0.5 to 1%, is I do like to talk about the physical things. I do like to talk about the emotional things the environmental things before you go down emotional rabbit holes. But this is something for you to explore. And I think the most important thing that I talked about earlier is if you still have a gut feeling that something needs investigating, then please go get a second opinion, ask someone else to explore further. If they really can't find anything, then definitely go down the emotional route. Okay, thank you.